is it a Gakpo style forward? Is it a Jota style forward? Is it Darwin Nunez?
It'd be nice to have that kind of seasoned head who can just kind of come in, put a foot on the ball, coach the players through it.
Do you think there's a chance that Ryan Gravenberch might actually get a start? We're going to sort of look at the team that Liverpool could play, obviously. I've got an 11 in front of me now, Josh, and big question marks, of course, over Ibu Konate and Trent Alexander-Arnold, if those two lads are actually going to be able to play because of injury. Virgil van Dijk, we know, is not going to be able to play because of a suspension. If Konate is out, are we happy with Matip coming in for him?
Yep, I think so.
Where are you looking at Virgil van Dijk's replacement? Ordinarily, it'd be Joe Gomez, but if Trent's out, is Gomez your right back?
Probably, yeah. And if Trent's out as well, it has a massive impact on the system as well, doesn't it? In terms of the box, I don't think we can play it without him. So it massively impacts like what goes on ahead of him and ahead of him further. Probably means Endo, for me, potentially plays as the starting six rather than McAllister, which we've seen in the last game. Did you see about McAllister, by the way, where he's playing?
No.
He's playing in Bolivia at the minute, and apparently, like on his way up there, or in preparation of the game, he's got an oxygen mask on because he's playing so high above sea level.
High altitude, yeah.
Yeah, so not ideal when you got the South American players. Endo's playing friendly.
But it must be a little bit like swimming in a t-shirt.
Possibly,
like you swim in a t-shirt, you take that t-shirt off and you are like road runner in a pool,
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So him coming back to the Premier League and playing in Liverpool must be dead easy for him after he's played at high altitude.
Possibly, yeah, but can you imagine McAllister ever being like a road runner?
No, probably not.
I can't either.
So Van Dijk, are we looking at Jarell Quansah maybe coming in for him, something like that? And then where are you looking at the team ahead of him? You said straight away, Josh, that we can't play the box. There's no chance that Robbo's going to go into the box midfield?
I personally doubt it. We could see an experiment there.
Because you've got three centre-halves who could then actually play the centre-halves better?
Yeah, we could even see Gomez have a go at it. Potentially even Matip like a proper wildcard curveball shout, considering like, if you think of Stones doing it.
Yeah.
Matip isn't that far off maybe in terms of his quality and
Although
stuff.
you worry, don't you, about like, he's here first and foremost, of course, and then all of a sudden, he just goes, bang! See you later, and then your box is completely and utterly gone, of course. So, yeah, difficult there for him, of course. So, I'll bring Matip back to where he's supposed to be, in naughty Matip.
But I think because we can't really form the box, maybe you want a bit more of a legitimate six compared to McAllister, who's been doing it lately really well. But he's a bit more of like, I think he benefits more from being in a two-man pairing with Trent next to him. Endo is a bit more in the Fabinho mode potentially. So he maybe starts there against Wolves, but you know, might be getting ahead of myself there. It's difficult to say at the minute.
I think it's probably a fair suggestion that Doak's not going to start and it could be Salah there.
Yeah.
In terms of forwards, obviously you think about Wolves, you think about, you know, they're not in the best form at the moment. Which forward would you go for in terms of that? Is it a Gakpo style forward? Is it a Jota style forward? Is it Darwin Nunez?
It's difficult, that one. I think Wolves are still kind of finding a way under Gary O'Neill, so it's difficult to actually judge as to what they are at the minute. They actually average more possession at the minute than Liverpool do, so they're trying to play with the ball by the looks of it. Maybe that benefits someone who's going to be pressing them into the ground a little bit. Nunez hasn't really done too much to come out the team, but against Aston Villa they play on offside, so it made sense to incorporate Nunez. Jota's just scored 2 for Portugal. Maybe it makes sense to play Jota there as like this pressing monster that we've got. So we've got options there, but in terms of specifically looking at Wolves, I don't really know. It's difficult that we've got 5 legitimate options who've all got genuine says as to like, you know, we could be involved in this, and it bodes well for the Europa League games, considering like despite doing rotation and that, we're still going to be starting with really good players up front.
And one of the things that I wanted to look at here is we know from past years and stuff that during international breaks, James Milner has had a tendency to start games after the international break because obviously he hung up his England boots and all that type of stuff. Do you think there's a chance that Ryan Gravenberch might actually get a start because he decided to sack off Netherlands under 21s and he's been here for 2 weeks? Like we've just spoken about Endo there. He's away on international duty. But Gravenberch isn't. He's been there for the last 2 weeks. Is it possible? Essentially, they're going to have the same amount of time training at the club, almost Endo and Gravenberch. Is it possible that Gravenberch does that role?
It is possible, and it's possible that he does the McAllister role as well, considering what we've just said about him playing in Bolivia and stuff. I am of the belief that I don't think we've signed Gravenberch to retrain him to become a Fabinho successor personally. I think he can play there and will play there at times, but I think he's going to be more of a multifunctional Wijnaldum, Henderson, playing where you need him type player. I think the 6 that we're going to get is probably still somewhere else, and we're still looking at that in the market and stuff like that. But in terms of Wolves, I don't know, I wouldn't rule it out. Like, I mean, you make a good point that he's been at the club for the past 2 weeks. You know, he hasn't really played any competitive minutes. Bayern use him on the bench a lot, so he's certainly ready to play. The only issue I'd have with it is, considering he's a new signing and that, would you want to throw him in that early and risk a potential bad performance?
Not away from home.
Exactly,
not away from home. I think when it comes down to it with him is you might need someone who's going to do a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to it, Ryan Gravenberch is going to want to do a little bit more of that. Exactly. And I think that's where the problem is when you think of Ryan Gravenberch as a 6 for me.
Yeah.
I threw it out there because I think it's an interesting talking point. But I do imagine it would be Endo, although it could quite easily be.
I also saw
McAllister with Jones.
Yeah, I also saw someone say as well, someone DM'd me and said, what about this? Oh, it didn't work.
I don't know what you've done there, mate. I know what it is. He's over here. So.
But yeah, Endo was a centre-half, essentially. That's what I'm getting at. I think he's got experience of doing it, even though he's about 5'10" or something like that, I think. So it's not an ideal thing, but considering the midfield options that we've got Gravenberch now, Jones, McAllister. I think Thiago's coming back, Basetic is back. So it would give us a way of getting Endo in the team without playing a teenager like Kwanzaa, you know, in a Premier League match. Still very young, still learning the trade and stuff like that. But again, it's more of a wild card shout. It's a bit of a curveball in it, but this is the problem that we've got, considering some of the knocks we've got on the side, specifically at the back. Absolutely.
Okay, well, we'll move on then. We'll look at LASK away. Obviously, it's the first the Europa League game. Bloody hell, I wish it was the Champions League game. Who are the players that come to mind when you think he's going to get a start here? We'll start with the goalkeeper. Is Kelleher going to get the Europa League games?
I think he will, yeah. I think he'll get pretty much all of them. I was thinking earlier today, if Liverpool get into the knockouts, you know, say, for example, like semis and that, I don't know. I don't know if Alisson would just kind of come in. Can you remember off the top of your head whether that happened in the FA Cup when we won the FA Cup?
I think he did come in for the FA Cup. I think he gave him the full League Cup.
Yeah, he did. He played the final, didn't he? Won the pen shootout for us. But I think I'd give Kelleher certainly the groups, the whole of the groups.
Guaranteed 6 games, plus maybe 1 in the League Cup, 1 in the FA Cup.
Yeah, I think that's where he'd get his minutes. In terms of other players that I'd like to see, I think Basetic needs to get some minutes in this tournament, considering he's been out for a while now. I do think he's a first team player in terms of the Premier League and stuff, but I think he'd benefit from getting his minutes and getting his sharpness back in this tournament for me. Another obvious one is Ben Doak. You know, he's very, very exciting player in here. I saw him during the week actually against, I think, Spain under 21s, and he was a real problem for them up front for Scotland. I think he played through the middle. So I think, you know, looking at him as a player, certainly looks like a Liverpool type, very rapid, very direct, you know, so bold on the ball and intense and things like that. So it'd be nice to see him get minutes in this. But I actually think in this game against LASK away, they're the second seed in our group. And I think with it being the first game, it's away from home. I think Klopp might go quite strong in that game, to the extent where I think Salah probably starts, to be honest.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Simply just to get off to a winning start, and the way in which the Europa League works as well. If you finish first in the group, you skip a round.
What about the team on sack race? Do you skip that? Or is that at the end, after the final?
Well, if you look at last season, for example, Man United finished second in their group, and their punishment for that was they played Barcelona, 2 legs, who just got knocked out of the Champions League for finishing third.
So you missed the Champions League teams?
Yeah. Arsenal missed the Champions League teams because they finished top of the group. So that's a mass. You get 2 games less, essentially. If you can go all the way to the final, that is. So I think Liverpool absolutely want to finish top. And if you look at the fixtures as well that we touched on earlier, I think Liverpool's last game in the group is about 3 days before Man United. So if Liverpool can get qualified before that last game, you can rest basically everyone ahead of a game against, you know, United, your biggest rivals. So I think Klopp will want to get this wrapped up quickly, and I think you can do that by beating probably the strongest team in your group away from home immediately.
Yeah, and set
so I think he'll go quite strong, yeah.
Okay, well, what about players like Thiago Alcantara? If he's fit and available for this one, does I pigeonholed him as almost my captain for the Europa League this season if he's fit. Is he someone that you'd want in this Europa League side?
He is, and I think a lot of the time for me, I'd kind of always want to play Endo or Thiago at some point. You know, always on the pitch, really, ideally. I think Bajcetic obviously is still learning his trade, still a teenager and that, and we've got a very young squad. I think we benefited in the past from having like a Milner for this tournament for certain Champions League games and things like that. So it'd be nice to have that kind of seasoned head who can just kind of come in, put a foot on the ball, coach the players through it. Say, for example, Tsimikas is playing left back or Quans is playing behind Thiago or whatever. Yeah. You know, it'd benefit Liverpool having that kind of, that player who's basically seen it all and done it all. And I think Thiago's that player for us, really. Especially considering, like, you know, Milner, Henderson, Fabinho all left the club in the same summer.
Okay, what about Ryan Gravenberch? Is the Europa League his first start?
Probably, yeah.
Sobo?
I don't know, it's difficult with Szoboszlai, isn't it? Like, I want him to play every single minute. I mean, he looks capable of doing that as well. But we do have options in midfield now, and I think Harvey Elliott is one who I do think will get a lot of minutes in this tournament. I think he'll get most of his minutes, personally, in Salah's spot, because he's our only other left footer. But as I said, for the first game, I think Salah might start that game. Salah's very used to playing 3 games a week, isn't he? So I think Gravenberch could play on the left of the midfield three a lot of the time, with Elliott on the right, and then maybe a Thiago there. And it remains to be seen whether Liverpool will do the box though. Like I've toyed with the idea of maybe, because we won't be playing Trent very much, maybe you can do like a bit of a 4-2-3-1 in the Europa League, playing 2 midfielders. You know, if you think of Thiago, Bajcetic, Gravenberch, Endo, they're all a kind of midfield 2 players, really. And we've got so many options up front. If you think of our customary front 5 and Ben Doak and potentially Harvey Elliott, you've got loads of options up front. You haven't got the inverting fullback anymore, because Trent's I can't see Trent playing any minutes in this tournament, certainly for the group stages. So I think Liverpool could toy a little bit of a different formation, but me and you have been touching on 4-2-3-1 for about 5 years, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely, in our own various guises. I think one of the things that I think we might see is a little bit more of Gakpo over on that left-hand side, or Jota on that left-hand side. And I think, you know, it's interesting for me where Jota's going to fit into this now, because I think, you know, back end of the season he looked really good. Start of this season he's looked really good, and yet in the last couple of games, Nunez is obviously the one who sort of sped into the lead. We'll move on then, because I think this one's a really interesting one. West Ham at home.
Thank you so very, very much for checking out the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like. The season is now well underway. If you need extra Redmen content, be it podcast, videos, documentaries, interviews, and general shows, fill your boots on RedmenPLUS.com today.